Let's go ahead and take care of our introductions. And Henry, let's start with you today.
Henry Weintraub, consultant with Express Car Wash.
Jim Talbot, City of Charlottesville.
Brad Sheffield, Albemarle County, of course.
John Unley, Better Living.
Chuck Lebo, Lebo Commercial Properties.
Mark Graham, Albemarle County.
Eddie Giles, Professional Movers Incorporated. Morgan Butler, Southern Environmental Law Center.
Rip Oil with the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission and the Charlottesville Albemarle MPO.
Pete Borch's CMA Properties.
Debbie?
Debbie Messina, Fellowship Gas Company.
Dave Covington, Regional Transportation Program Manager with VDOT.
John Lynch, Culpeper District.
Goldie Muncie of VDOT Charlottesville Residency.
Lou Hatter, Route 29 Communications Manager.
Stephen Davis, Central Office, VDOT, IT.
All right, very good. Now that we've taken care of that, Stephen, let's go to the presentation and go to slide 3, if you don't mind. Thank you very much. Since our at our last meeting, the October 9th meeting, there were 39 viewers, which I think is about the same as last time. 117 specific streams from those 39 viewers, and an average minute per stream of 26 minutes. Stephen? Since the period October 6th through October 20th, there were 5 comments submitted through the email portion of the website. There are 29 total postings now on the interactive portion of the website. There were 7 new ones. I don't believe there were any new questions, mostly just comments and a couple of notices from VDOT. The general summary of the comments that were submitted are a few new ones. One was the general support of the package of projects. One asked for consideration of bicyclists at all the intersections, but called out especially Woodbrook and Route 29, which we won't be doing anything with that intersection as part of this particular project. There was a comment in support of the Burkmar multi-use path, which is part of the Burkmar Project 3 for support of a multi-use path on Route 29 widening, and we'll mention that again just a little bit later. One comment expressed some concern about advanced signing and weaving, which is a good comment and certainly something that VDOT has been considering and will continue to consider as we get into the designs as far as the weaving at the end of the grade separated intersections. I can also tell you that as far as advanced signing goes, tomorrow there's a meeting of a group of people that VDOT has pulled together to begin to discuss some of the technical issues with advanced signing, not only normal traffic engineering signing, but also things that might be considered in terms of more local signing to businesses on the local roadways. And Dave, thanks for getting that group together, and I know Nate will, I think they've really got a bead on what they're about. After they meet and get some additional thoughts on the table, we'll have that fed back to us for consideration.
Philip,
Yes, sir.
I believe that there will be, it may not have even been submitted until today, I received a copy of it, of a local citizen asking about, even if it's not part of the transportation package, the bridge over the Rivanna at Burkmar.
Yes.
For the county to take a look at trying to incorporate a boat launch access point there. That, you know, usually bridges are a very good point to access, to put in canoes, kayaks, that type of thing. And just wanted to throw that out because it, you know, it may need to be accommodated even if it's not part of the roadway project.
I think did we get that similar letter, Dave, or am I just?
It was a county comment.
It was a county comment. Okay. Is this a letter that is,
It's an email, and
Okay.
they sent me an email that said that they submitted it, but this was this morning, so.
okay,
it probably
okay,
didn't
okay,
go.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good, we'll follow up on that, thank you very much.
Phil, as
Yes, sir.
part of the format for these meetings, is it possible to figure out how we can incorporate, as panel members, so I'm sure we're getting questions, and sometimes those questions evolve into interesting comments and ideas that I think need to be incorporated. Is there a way we can somehow, like maybe at the beginning, if any of us have any of that, share it or something? Because, for example,
Absolutely.
talking to somebody yesterday or day before yesterday, distracted driving is a huge issue. It's going to be even further an issue in this construction zone. Is there a way we can help try to educate and kind of mitigate that
Sure.
leading up to construction and maybe a little bit after? Another was bicycle issues at the Rio intersection, just allowing for queue lanes and stuff. But there's ideas that are coming out of these discussions that I assume we're all having that I think are worth making sure we get on record, because people are a little bit frustrated that they're telling me stuff. I try to convey it. They're not really hearing that it's being heard, or that they're not seeing it in print, or they're not hearing me say it publicly.
Okay. Well, I think there's two ways that I can think of. One would be if you get something in advance of the meeting, we can get it on the agenda.
Okay.
But I don't believe there's any reason that we couldn't, we sort of have a wrap-up at the end. There's no reason we couldn't have a start-up at the beginning.
I don't want to take too much time, but
Well, I don't think it needs to take, it's why we're here. And that would give an opportunity to get ideas on the table. They may not be able to all be addressed at that particular meeting.
Absolutely.
But that would get it on the table for the next meeting. So I'd be happy to include a period like that at the beginning
okay.
of the meeting.
If that's fine with everybody else, I just
Yeah, I get comments too.
Yeah,
Very
okay.
good idea.
Okay, that is a good idea.
We may have something that at the previous meeting came out and
Sure.
now finally it
Sure.
sinks in and says,
Sure.
well, there's a
Yeah.
concern that either I have or somebody told me
Right,
about
right.
that I may want to share, even if we don't go into discussing.
Sure, okay.
yeah.
Well,
I'm honestly not looking to prolong a meeting. I just
hey, it's why we're here.
okay.
So, that'd be
Try out
fine.
whichever you need to do.
Well, that would give us a chance to not only have the wrap-up, but then to bring things in at the beginning, which if we may be able to address them at that meeting. If not, they'll help build the agenda for the following meeting. If you do get anything in between meetings that you want to get on the agenda, don't hesitate to give me a shout, a note, a call, or whatever, and we'll do it for sure. Okay, thanks, Brad. That's a real good thought, actually.
I think as time goes on, we're going to start getting more and more ideas presented to us.
As time goes on, it's not going to get easier
Right,
anytime
and it's
soon.
not getting easier to
Yeah.
incorporate the ideas either.
Right.
6 months from now, if someone comes up with an idea, and we're already, working with a contractor or design, it gets a little bit more difficult, so.
Well, it does. I think the good news is, at least from my point of view of being involved in public projects, is it's not going to be easy, but we're doing it. And it's not that there aren't avenues normally available, but we're blazing some new ground here, at least in the Commonwealth, and I think everybody will benefit from that at the end, with a few bruises, but we'll all be good. Okay, we can blow by that page, Stephen. All that's done. The public hearings, as you know, were last week. I think I saw all or most of you there. We'll say a little bit more about that public hearing in a bit. The location approval for the Berkmar location approval did occur as planned the following day by the CTB. The one set of proprietary meetings, they were moved up to October 21st and 22nd. Those occurred Tuesday and Wednesday. Everything else remains on track through the end of this year, as well as the next slide, Steve, as well as next year. That's the same. Go ahead. Speaking of panel recommendations, we'll spend some time now on where those stand from the last meeting, as well as some cleanup issues. As I indicated last weekend, seems like last meeting, and as we've agreed with VDOT, the multi-use path on Route 29 widening will be added. It'll be on the west side on the east side of 29. It would be paved to Hollymead. Dave, make sure I say this right. It would be paved to Hollymead.
Hollymead Drive, right?
North Hollymead Drive. Be a crosswalk at North Hollymead to the west side of the road, where a sidewalk would extend from there north. So multi-use path, crosswalk, and then a sidewalk. The current thinking is that the multi-use path would be graded beyond North Hollymead, but not paved at this time. Now, go ahead, Pete.
Does that take the place of one or both of the sidewalks that were previously in the plan?
Would take the place of the sidewalk on the east side,
Well, both.
not
Right
the
now-
sidewalk
right now,
north
the
of
thoughts are that south of that section of sidewalk at North Hollymead Drive, there wouldn't be a sidewalk on the west side.
On the west side.
29.
And there would not be an additional sidewalk. I mean, essentially, we're squeezing this into the right of way, so you're eliminating the two
Yes.
sidewalks and like one multi-use path.
One multi-use path,
Good, okay.
but then a sidewalk on the west,
North of Hollymead Drive.
north of Hollymead.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
great. Good
yes.
point.
Yes, Chuck.
When we're talking sidewalks, I know some roads have the sidewalk comes right to the curb, and some have a grassy strip between the two. What are we talking about on these sidewalks?
We're talking about a buffer strip between the curb and the sidewalk.
Well, let's go with all of them. What about the multi-use path?
The multi-use path will have an even greater offset to the
Okay.
path, I believe, if I remember correctly, 10 feet from the travel lane. And that's a requirement for multi-use paths. And the sidewalk you're referring to is in dense urban areas to minimize right-of-way impacts. In that area, it's more appropriate to have that buffer strip, or some people call it a utility strip, on
Grassy.
Grass
planted.
Yes.
So there'd be a buffer strip, and then on the side, just 1 minute, Mayor, just 1 minute. And then on the sidewalk, there would also be a buffer strip between the roadway and the sidewalk. Is that okay, Chuck?
That's great.
Okay. Mayor?
Is that possible to have the multi-use path all the way, paved all the way?
But the reason that we decided to terminate the path at North Hollymead Drive is because of the configuration of the intersection of 29 and Town Center Drive. There's currently there's not a pedestrian refuge area in the median, which means we would have to cross pedestrians all the way across all those lanes of traffic through one cycle of the signal, which would have a very negative effect on the green time on 29. As a result of that, there is enough pedestrian refuge area at the intersection of North Hollymead Drive, so we took the opportunity to provide that crossing there. If we were to continue the trail paved all the way up to the intersection of Town Center, it wouldn't connect it. There's some implications from ADA requirements for that.
Dave, thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you for, that recommendation for the multi-use path generated here. I don't know if we can lay 100% claim to it, but the mayor brought it up, I remember, several meetings ago, and appreciate it being incorporated appropriately into the project. And as we said, if the designs come in and there's some need to reevaluate it, we'll concern ourselves with that at that time. But our intent is to proceed just as we described. The Architectural Review Board and the specs are being developed for the November 6th addendum. Actually, Dave got a draft of specifications about 10 minutes before he left the office, so we don't have draft specifications to share with everyone today, but I did want to review the intent of the draft specs to see if we're generally on track. Again, just to refresh our memories, we wanted to put specifications into the RFP as opposed to just saying, gee, let's see what you got when you get to that point, which I think is a good idea. The specifications are being developed for the wall treatment based on what we saw for the retaining wall at the Best Buy ramp, the Virginia dry stack pattern without any fancy stuff on it, which is sort of the replication of a stone wall with vertical columns at specified intervals, similar to what your folks developed, Morgan. Where the wall is exposed to both, on both sides, it won't be the retaining wall itself is just going to be visible from one side. The top portion of that wall will be visible from the local lanes as well as the through lanes, and there the treatment would be both on both sides of the wall. We saw an example last meeting, of an open-faced barrier that's being crash tested and approved for use in these applications. That would be powder coated, which means it won't be bright, shiny stainless steel. It will be coated, and we'll see a RAL federal number for that particular coating and have a chance to see what it looks like. There will be specific language for landscaping, including some landscape treatments on the deck at Rio. I know at the public meeting there was a rendering that showed plantings on the deck, but it showed some trees that aren't going to be on the deck, and that rendering is getting revised to show more of the lower level plantings that would, the trees just aren't going to work on that deck. The color treatment for the railing and the walls would be similar to McIntyre, similar to what will be used on the Best Buy ramp noise walls, and the RFP will include the requirement for the mock-ups. So that will give us a chance, and these mock-ups will be somewhere out on the project, some appropriate place where we can safely look at them out near the project, which helps give some context to viewing them. The specifications will be, I mean, these aren't going to be a treat to read, but they will be very specific in terms of what will be required. So that will help the contractor build that into their price, and we will have a chance by the next meeting. They'll have to be done by the next meeting. So between now and the next meeting at the latest, we'll see the actual specifications for the architectural and landscaping treatments. Not just for Rio grade separated intersection, but for all of the projects. Yes?
And so, the Route 29 widening project, what's the latest with just landscaping requirements and the median there? I think we had flagged that as an issue we wanted to return to at some point.
Currently, and I've just had time to just flip through that draft special provision, but currently street trees in the median, similar to what is south of the bridge, for all areas where the existing vegetation has to be removed for construction or widening purposes. And then the identification of approximately 5 locations where there be low shrubs or flowers planted in groups. So in locations where they wouldn't be an impact to site distance or anything like that.
And that's being addressed along with these provisions relating to architecture.
Specifically in a special provision.
Thanks.
Yes.
Then Dave, is it correct to say that during our opportunity to look at the design submittals, those will include landscaping?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a requirement for a landscape architect to develop the landscape plans for all of the projects.
Yeah.
Obviously, the biggest opportunity being on 29 White, but it also includes Brookmont.
Okay. All right. If we can move on, we'll do that. Chuck, last time you brought up some issues about existing Berkmar and the condition of the pavement, and we had Joel go out and take a look.
Yes.
Joel?
So I went out and reviewed, after the last meeting, the pavement on Berkmar. It's pretty well broken up, you're right. The good thing about it is it's mostly what we call surface down cracking, so it really just needs a surface coat on it. So we're going to do a couple things next year. We're going to find a way to get that pavement milled and overlaid prior to the detour being in place. And with doing that, we actually have a wider section than just a 2-lane road out there, so we're going to look at some opportunities to do some restriping after we overlay it to help traffic flow a little bit better during this time too. The question right now is not in our contract for next year, but there's certain opportunities we'll have to either add it to the contract or put it as a...
Tell them the contract. When you say our contract, what you
we put out our resurfacing contract every year. It's already gone out to bid. So when we get that back in, depending on how those bids come back in, we might have the opportunity just to add Berkmar on, or we have the opportunity to find additional funding for it. So basically, I did a price estimate, and I think we're going to be able to fund that for next year, whether it's just an addition to the contract or part of the current contract. So we're going to find a way to do it.
What section of Berkmar are you talking about, Joel?
From Rio down to the whole section.
To 29?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, in my opinion, that's the worst.
Yeah, and that's where we're really focusing on, putting a lot of that traffic and the time, especially with the installation of that additional signal there. So we're gonna get that pavement in good shape before we traffic.
Super, thank you.
Any questions on that? Joel, thanks a lot, and you'll kind of keep us tuned in. Okay?
Yeah, I'll have a lot more information in the spring.
Okay. All right.
And when.
All right. The use of portable message signs to advertise the project website. Doggone it, I left here gung-ho about doing that, and a VDOT rep gave me some reasons of why maybe that wasn't a good idea, and I immediately said I thought it was, and then I did a little homework of my own and decided that VDOT rep was a pretty smart young man. I looked at some research and some policy guidance from the feds, and actually some stuff that was developed at VDOT policy when somebody very close to me happened to be the commissioner. And the variable message signs are, it's not encouraged that changeable message signs advertise phone numbers other than like 511 or 911 or websites, primarily because of the issue of distracted driving. And in spending some time reading a couple different policy guidance and articles, I see the point of view from some issues that could be created with driver distraction for advertising a website. But the morning after our last meeting, we had a very good follow-up meeting with the county, with CHIP, and with VDOT to talk about this issue of getting the word out more, John, and you specifically mentioned the neighborhoods, not just the businesses, but the neighborhoods. Tom Foley was there, the county's communication manager was there, Lou, Dave, John, and I believe we've got a pretty good lead on some simple things that we can do to focus a specific person on business communications and specific people to kind of be the contact person for neighborhoods. We started to dig up, with the help of the county, dig into some of the officers, the current boards of the different neighborhood associations, start to make contact with them and establish a communications network. Not that that wouldn't have been done anyway, but I think the comments from the last meeting kind of charged that up a little. For the time being, and this will be fed into Chip's comms plan that he's working on with the county and the city and VDOT. I'd like to see us kind of nail that plan down as soon as we can. And if the use of the variable message signs or the bank sign could come into play, then we can consider that maybe in a broader context, but not flash a message telling people to go to Route29solutions.org. So that's where we left that at the last meeting.
I'm concerned about a couple things.
Okay.
One, I think that we need to stop differentiating the business community from the residents as a whole. Communication is important to citizens of Albemarle County.
Great.
And two, if we target one red circle of businesses and residences, then we miss the opportunity to communicate with the through traffic that is commuting from north to south. The UVA health system now is doing a lot of commuting back and forth up and down 29, and they would miss that important information but they're affected multiple times a day for some of them that have to go back and forth to the research park. The commuters are left out of that targeted messaging, I think, and I hope that we can fold that in or extend the reach of our communication.
Yeah,
outside of those.
No, I agree. I mean, there's no intent to leave anyone out.
I don't think it's malicious. I just we need to
No, absolutely. And I'm just going to say this, and we'll move past it. I think it's important that communication be based on facts and not on our communications. Our communications should not be about selling the project. They should be about the facts of the project. People who aren't happy with the projects should communicate based on facts and not otherwise. So I agree, Pete. I thought our meeting last Friday morning was good. I know the county has the meeting tonight. That is more focused on business, but that's the purpose of it. We need to establish some communications with the neighborhoods and also with commuting traffic. There's just no question about that. And I think part of your idea, Chip, was to pull in many of those other constituencies that we could use to help reach. For example, employers reaching employees is something that we can do to spread a message very wide. John, I think, if you don't mind, I think you mentioned to me after your meeting that after each one of these meetings, you you give your employees a little update of where things stand. So I agree. And I also agree and appreciate what you said about not differentiating between the businesses and the neighborhoods as far as communications go. There just may be some communications that are targeted to businesses, especially when construction is underway.
To Pete's point, and your point as well, it seems like that the neighborhood and business and commuter, all that communication would overlap, because so many people that we're
Yes.
trying to reach in the neighborhoods are the commuters.
That's
So
right.
that would make it just even an easier way even to reach them.
That's right.
Going door to door.
That's right. No, I agree.
And I can just add, as
Yes.
an example, I've been working with Joel at an upcoming Greene County
Mhm.
Board of Supervisors meeting. We're going to present an update there, which is out at the fringe of that net, but it's still underneath the net that needs they need to know a lot of their citizens or those commuters that have no business and have no home in our jurisdiction.
Are you gonna try and do that with Fluvanna and Louisa as well?
Definitely, maybe not quite to the detail, and we've already begun with our monthly board meetings, which have elected officials on from each one of those counties. We do a monthly update now of the schedule, what's going on, and if they do come to us and say, hey, it's as important to Fluvanna citizens as it is Greene, we'd be glad to.
I think Madison and Orange would be included also.
But if you're going towards Lake Monticello in the morning between 7 and 8:30, it is a constant flow of people, and they're all headed to Charlottesville. So it's,
I mean, it's as simple as a meeting, we'd be glad to.
I think that, and I know there's some care needs to be taken to work through it, but maybe before by the meeting after next, do you think we might have that plan in a place where we could share it with this group? And okay, I believe once we have something in front of us, it helps get a little bit sharper with how we want to reach out.
Bill?
Yes.
Just as an add-on, Joel provides updates to the boards of all those counties monthly in terms of the overall VDOT program, so we certainly could add in items on the 29 Solutions project, and then offer, other meetings if the boards feel that they have the need, certainly Greene, which is important.
Yeah.
And then our other residency engineer covers Orange and Madison, but we can assist him get updates there as well.
We might want to talk about reaching out to Rob Carey too, the Lynchburg district.
Oh, Chris Winstead.
Chris Winstead,
Yeah,
who used to be named Rob Carey. Yeah, Rob Carey somewhere in VDOT.
Rob was the
guy. Yeah, Chris Winstead.
No, I can do that.
Yeah, that's the Lynchburg district administrator, so we cover that area as well.
So I don't think it really makes a difference, but I'm showing that we met on the 15th.
That's because we met on the 15th and not the 10th. That's right, it was after the design public hearing, not after our last meeting. Chip wins the prize. No, thank you, Chip, you're right, it was on the Friday after the design public hearing. My bad, thank you very much, thank you. Okay, Steve? The Brookmar location approval, the CTB approved alternative A. I don't know that there was a lot to share from that, Dave or John, from the CTB meeting?
No, it went fairly smoothly. I mean, in terms of they're presented with the different alternatives, the results of the location hearing in terms of the number of folks that provided a preference to a particular alternative, and they took their vote.
If you'll recall, we saw those stats at our last meeting, and there was, out of 40-some comments, 30-some for alternative A, and I think 2 for B and 1 for C. So I believe it was pretty straightforward at the Commonwealth Bank. Thank you. Dave, how about an update on the 25029 Best Buy project and the adaptive signal timing project?
Sure, a lot of folks probably saw.
Why don't you want to pop out here?
I can, it's going to be pretty brief.
Well, you stand out here for a little brief time.
You
Then you can sit right here. You can sit right here.
There's been a lot of activity for the past few weeks out along Route 29 as part of a utility relocation effort for the 29-250 interchange, or more commonly known as the Best Buy ramp project. This was to relocate telecommunication lines owned by CenturyLink in the median of Route 29. That work has been completed. It was completed 1 week early, and it involved the temporary closure of the crossovers, 3 crossovers there south of between hydraulic intersection and the 250 bypass. The work went rather well. It was kind of fast-paced. They dealt with a lot of challenges with regard to weather. Fortunately, we're able to overcome all those, and we're very fortunate that they completed that early. They're out of the way, so they've completed all the advanced utility relocations for the project. So there will be some that will be done in conjunction with the construction work. With regard to the adaptive signal project, they continue to perform the phase 1 installation of communication systems to the existing signals along the corridor. That work currently is on schedule. My last update on that was they have completed the installation of handholds, pulling fiber lines, which is generally work that's performed behind the curb line. And they completed that for the northbound lanes up to just south of the Rio intersection. And that work is going to move to the southbound lanes. And the work that's going to start on the northbound lanes is the installation of additional loop detectors, which will help us during construction of the projects to manage traffic better. It's a pretty strong approach from a maintenance of traffic perspective to advance that work ahead of the major construction activity along 29. All this work is being done under nighttime lane closures. There are no daytime lane closures allowed for this work. So 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., they're meeting the same requirements that we are requiring of the design builders. That answer all the questions? Any questions on this?
Any questions for Dave? The night of the 14th, after the public, I didn't tell you this, after the public hearing, I went out on 29 and parked off into one of the businesses and watched that team work a bit at that intersection. And there was nobody leaning on shovels. I mean, I was really pleased at how they had their work zone, how they had their work zones marked, the safety precautions they were taking, and they were hitting it hard. And they got out a week early, which is good, and you should, from all of us to David and his group, another David, tell them thanks.
Well, one additional piece of information, the technology that they use to relocate those lines, these are fiber optic duct banks, very sensitive. I believe it's the first time it's ever been used within PDOT right of way, so we used some innovation there to speed up the relocation and cut that relocation time in half. So now we've got a proven model that we can use moving forward on other relocations.
Don't go too far away.
I'll be right.
Any other questions for?
Were there any updates on the the proposal going out, the contract proposal for the 29-250 interchange?
Other than it's on time and we've made the.
So the schedule's still the same?
Yes.
November the 10th, ad date.
All right, that's what one checked.
November the 10th, ad date. So that actually moved up a month from December to November. And the noise spec is signed,
That's
sealed,
been done, yes.
and done.
It's included with the package.
When you put that kind of ad out, what are you expecting? Just notifying the public that construction is, or contract's been awarded and construction will start? I'm just curious,
Could be a
because
little more than that, but I mean, well, when it goes, when the ad goes out, we say ad, it's an advertisement for bids, so it'd be an advertisement.
I meant the ad that you put out notifying that construction is going to be commencing on the project. Isn't there an ad that you'll be putting out notifying the public that construction will be commencing?
Oh, yeah, I mean, that will roll into our communicate, when we talk about communications here, it's not just the design build package. It will certainly include that as well. There will be regular construction alerts that go out as maintenance of traffic schemes shift and as the project advances, absolutely.
Talking about further as we get closer.
Yeah, yeah. That should probably, a notice to proceed for that project will fall very close to when a notice to proceed for the design build projects comes. The difference will be the Best Buy contractor will already have a full set of plans, and their next job will be construction, not finishing design. Go ahead, Steve. The design public hearing, I can give you an update. The comment period's not closed. 210 people attended on October 14th. Through the 19th, 181 comments have been received. And you're probably wondering the same thing I am, but I didn't ask the question of what those comments were saying. And frankly, the reason I didn't ask is because there's still a day left that people can comment, and I don't think that should be swayed by what the 181 said. So there's as of October 19th, there were 181 comments that VDOT had received. Most all of them were written comments left at the meeting, if I'm recalling what Rob told me. So we'll know by the end of the week. VDOT will start sorting through those and prepare a report on the design public hearing.
Will we have a summary of those comments?
Yes.
At the next meeting?
Yeah, we'll have that at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Yes, yes, we will. I thought the meeting was very well, I thought the hearing was very well attended. I know I got there a little bit early, and there was probably 15 or 20 people there when I got there, and it seemed to be rather steady for the whole period, which is good, which is really good. Dave? Well, any questions about the design public hearings?
You knew Chuck was there.
I know Chuck was there. Chuck was busy. I was there. Busy, yeah. It was a good group. It was a good meeting. Dave, item 8, Stephen, the next one, utility and stormwater management is.
Yeah, I think most of the update here should be about utilities. We're looking very closely at utilities, and I may talk a little bit more about this specific item a little bit further in the agenda, but we recognize that relocation of utilities, specifically at the Route 29 Rio Road intersection, is a high-risk item. VDOT is very committed to reducing risk wherever we can, so we are looking, right now, we've started the process of preliminary design of utility relocations through that project. We're also looking to get that design up to a point where we can move forward with acquisition of easements, even in advance of the contractor being awarded the contract, so that we can provide that information, those easements, to the design builder to not only reduce their risk, which a reduction in risk is a reduction in bids, which is a cost savings for the taxpayers, but also to make sure that a good plan is in place when it comes time to relocate these utilities, that it's not rushed. So, stormwater management, we're continuing to look at alternative options, including what Mark discussed during the last meeting about regional basins and can those be retrofitted and used. And we're going to continue that process. We're getting pretty far along in it. Obviously, we need to have some more information about that for the addendum. It's upcoming.
Has anything changed with respect to the 4 possible locations?
Not as of yet, but I suspect that there could be some changes there. Okay. Nothing concrete.
Okay. Anything for Dave on, I couldn't get him to stay out here, but Karen?
VDOT already begun sending out offers to specific property owners for acquisition of those areas?
VDOT is not allowed to, VDOT or any representative of VDOT is not allowed to discuss offers or extend offers before there's authorization to acquire right of way. And that has not occurred, likely will not occur in the near future.
Has VDOT, and this isn't kind of to put out any offers for use of property along the construction area for placing signage or anything like that?
No. There's nobody that's been approached as far as in any sort of offer or deal to purchase easements or right of way.
Well, Burkmar Drive Extended, alternative A has been selected, so wouldn't you begin that process pretty soon? I mean, you know where it's going to be.
Well, there's 2 functions. There's right of way and then there's easements. Well, easements qualify as part of right of way, but we do know the general location, but we still need to provide a plan that is approved for right of way acquisition. And generally that's 60 to 70% complete. We don't have that level of detail yet in the plans. It would be a large risk to go acquire right of way, and then all of a sudden some design element requires a change, or through the environmental clearance process as well.
I'm trying to remember our schedule, our indicative schedule off the top of my head for Burkmar, but I think that was long about the 3rd or 4th quarter of next year, but I just don't remember. For right of way.
Yeah.
For right of way.
That sounds right. They'll take
They'll
a good
take
portion of
a-
next
yeah.
year to perform that design, get
Right.
it to a level where
You can have a formal right of way plan.
In a design build scenario like we're coming into, 60% drawings might be difficult until we have a contractor. I think you were just speaking about that, but so we won't get to that level until much further down the road. Are those initial conversations going to come from VDOT, or are they going to come from the contractor, or a combination of both?
Well, only with respect to utility easements along the 29 Rio Great Separated Intersection project, we're advancing that. VDOT is, not any design builder or offer, advancing that design. We would like to get it to a 50% level. Utility easements are a little bit easier to get. We don't need quite as much detail because there's not so much complexity in different elements of the design. So we feel comfortable that we can begin that process late this year, early next year, but our goal would be to have those easements already in place, established, purchased by VDOT by the notice to proceed date of March 4th next year.
And then if there's right-of-way, additional true right-of-way that's
Yes.
taken, that will be from
Separate.
But the initial contact will be from, at that point, the contractor or
The
VDOT?
design builder. The
design
design builder's consultant.
I'm just asking for a process standpoint.
Yeah.
The phone rings and it's X.
XYZ Corporation working for the design builder.
As a representative of VDOT.
As a representative. Right. Yes.
I thought back a time ago, we were told that there would be no additional acquisition of right-of-way, and that's why there didn't have to be an environmental study.
Not quite. There are some slivers of Right, well, first of all, the right-of-way and the environmental issue are not directly related. There was an environmental study. There are 3 categories of documents under the National Environmental Policy Act: EIS, big project, major federal action, environmental assessment, which is a document that could result in a full EIS or could result in a finding of no significant impact. And then there's a document called a categorical exclusion, which is a category of types of projects that the Federal Highway Administration says, if your project fits these parameters, largely on existing location, minimal, I'm not going to remember all the parameters under a categorical exclusion, but it's largely on existing location of an existing roadway, minimal right-of-way, no taking of businesses or homes, no major environmental impacts identified. It can be documented with what is called a categorical exclusion. Still has to be approved by the Federal Highway Administration, still has to be available for public review, and that's what was done for the Rio Grade separated intersection as well as Route 29 widening. So those documents were prepared and prepared in the summer, submitted to the Federal Highway Administration, reviewed, and approved in late September or early October. It may have been early October. So there are, at least based on the conceptual drawing, in addition to some easements, there are some slivers of right-of-way around the intersection. I remember one sliver on the west side of 29 and the north side of Rio that don't take any parking spaces. Seems like there's another sliver on the other side of that intersection. I don't want to pull that out of memory.
Well, there's little slivers here and there, but it's all the smaller green space areas. There's no impacts. Now a total take of the total parcel that would have required a relocation of a business, for instance, may have thrown it out of the realm of that categorical exclusion.
Oh, yeah, but we didn't have that. We don't have that. Okay. Thanks, Dave. Traffic. We talked a bit about traffic last time. We've wrapped up the summer counts, the fall counts, including the fall count on the non-football weekend, that we took. And all this information included not only the counts on 29 and on Rio, but counts at 44 different intersections, counts turning movements into and out of businesses. All of that's fed into a traffic model that was prepared for project modeling. And that project model sets on top of land use that is approved by the county or by the jurisdiction where a project is. Land use means they look at, this land is zoned residential, this land is zoned commercial, this land is zoned retail. There are growth factors in the model. I'm not sure who does that in your shop, Mark, or maybe that's you. It's a arduous process to prepare these land use models that are then adopted by MPOs across the United States as they're underlying land use that sits at the foundation of their traffic models. And that's what we've used. And from that, we have, and I've used here the PM peak as an example that we're going to see, simply because the PM peak is the larger number of traffic. Could replicate the same thing for AM if you'd be interested in seeing that. And we have the fall counts. This is just at Rio. We have the fall counts on the existing intersection, through the existing intersection. We have the modeled existing intersection as if the grade separated intersection existed today, based on those fall counts and the new capacity that would be added by the improved operation of the intersection. And we have 2018 counts and we have 2040 counts. And we're going to look at them, but these numbers are the numbers. If they don't suit you, you can write in whatever number you want to write. But these numbers are the numbers from the traffic modeling exercise by the traffic modeling consultant that VDOT hires, and we will look at them now. And these may not.
I just want to be clear
Yes.
before we start, so I make sure I'm looking at this correctly. The
Yes.
left is the south, the right is the north?
Yes, and the reason, I won't tell you why I didn't put a north arrow on there, but as Lou pointed out last night, and in spite of my best efforts, I wasn't too good at that. But all I'll say is initially, there was a north arrow on these that didn't point north, and I developed these myself, so let's, yes, this is north. Okay, go ahead.
Is there a reason why we're using PM peak hours and not AM?
The only reason I used PM was they were the greater number, which would be used, and that's all. I can certainly do the same thing for the AM. I just chose one as the example. I can produce exactly the same sheets for the AM.
What is the peak hour? 5?
The peak hour is more than an hour.
Yeah, especially due to congestion.
Yes. Yeah, things of, don't assume anything, but what is the PM period here presumed to be?
Probably, if I remember correctly, I think it was 4 to 7.
Oh, that sounds right.
Just a real quick, you have 1 hour, generally that's assumed to be the peak hour, but once you reach a certain congestion level, you have what's called peak hour spread, where people adjust their travel habits, leave a little early, leave work a little late, something like that, and it tends to spread that peak out over several hours. So it may not just be a single hour.
But these are distributed an hourly volume in the evening based on the fall
So
count.
these are per hour.
Per
And
hour.
there's 3 hours, it's divided
This is
by
per hour. So based on the fall counts, north is to the right, south is to the left, east is to the bottom, west is to the top. That's how the existing intersection looks now based on those fall counts. Just taking one quadrant, the northwest quadrant, 1,633 vehicles traveling south on 29 through the intersection, 160 turning left, 160 turning right, 514 turning left. The same applies for all of the different quadrants. What you don't have here is each individual movement in and out of, and intersection or connection. If that, go to the next one, please. Yes, sir.
I was just like,
Yes.
why doesn't the current graph that we're looking at have the same quadrants as the next graph? So we don't have the, if I'm looking at this properly, we don't have this set of numbers in the traffic that's traveling. See here, we've got north, south, and all quadrants, but not in the first row.
Let me make sure I understand what you're asking, Karen. We've got four quadrants.
Apples to apples, but I
We've
don't-
got four quadrants of traffic in each graphic. The first one is the existing situation,
Right,
okay?
right.
The next one is how the existing intersection traffic would look if it was grade separated today,
Okay, so.
okay?
The traffic that is, my bearings here, south of Rio Road, on the one with the interchange, we don't have any traffic south of Rio Road presently.
I'm gonna have to come and look over it.
Okay, I'm
So-
sorry, I may be
Well,
looking at it wrong.
well, let's try this for a minute, Karen. Let's try this for a minute. Let's try
I see
this.
what you're
These set
saying.
of numbers, they don't.
These numbers down here
Yeah,
are not, we don't have numbers
they
there.
don't, there's not like.
Bottom
clear
left.
image.
It's basically the receiving traffic on the.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm sorry. Go back. Because, and that may have been a better way to show it, because this number, this number, it would be this number that went through plus the right turns and these left turns.
So the through traffic on the current is total heading south on 29 is 1633.
Right.
And on the new model, it would be the combination of these, or is this just a duplicate of numbers?
It's not a duplicate of numbers.
Okay.
Okay?
It's
It's
a-
not a
what's
duplicate.
that?
It's not a duplicate of numbers.
Right.
Well, it's not apples to apples because one is the existing intersection and the others are the at grade, or the grade separated intersection.
Make sure I just told right. 1633 plus 265 plus 110.
Yes.
You get on this side.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the reverse. would
Yes.
be 1981.
Yes.
Plus 197 plus.
Right. Right.
It's somewhat similar to this, except it's broken apart.
Except it's broken apart and it's based on the fall counts. It's based on the fall counts.
Now, there's an issue, that is the peak. And if I remember correctly, this was the average. Am I
That
correct?
was.
I thought we were told it was the average.
That was.
The average was used because
Yeah, I think so.
it wasn't so different from the peak.
And the purpose of doing that at the time was to take a stab at what the worst situation might be for the southbound movement on 29 that would only be 2 lanes during construction.
And as a business person,
Mhm.
I would be more interested in the average from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. than a peak that goes past after it starts, which some business still profit
Okay.
from it, and some business are closed by that time.
Okay.
So, in a way, these numbers, for some of us, are more interesting than those.
At the end of
That
this.
makes a big difference.
At the end of this, we will, if you'd like to see an average based on average daily traffic, I'll replicate these 4 based on average daily traffic. If you'd like to see the AM, we can replicate them based on the AM. But we'll replicate them out of the numbers that were generated by the model that has been developed.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's
Mhm.
something
Mhm.
called AAT.
AADT, average annual daily
Very good.
traffic.
And
There's
that
average
is-
annual daily traffic,
And
there's
that
average daily traffic.
10 hours from 8 to
Mhm.
6. and they're very meaningful to somebody that operates a business.
Mm-hmm.
While the peak hours are very important from the point of view of traffic control.
Right, right.
And from the point of view of a business operation,
Mm-hmm.
the other number is more interesting.
I'm not going to pass judgment on which ones are more or less interesting. I'd be happy to replicate them.
No, whatever.
Be happy to replicate. Existing. If the grade separated intersection, based on the fall counts, and all of the turning movements, into the businesses, if the grade separation existed today, which it doesn't, but if it did, this next one is how the traffic would be distributed. How traffic, based on 2014 fall counts for the PMP, or for any other period you would want it to be, would be distributed if the grade separated intersection existed today. Yes.
Don't want to keep asking too many questions, but on the original count, did y'all count per lane, or was it just a total aggregate?
Per lane.
It was per lane.
Go back to the first one.
So you do have that 16.
That is the aggregate per lane of the ones that go through. That's the aggregate.
For all 4 lanes going through?
Right, because they're...
I was just asking, do you have
Yes.
Per lane? Did you count per lane? Because
Yes.
what I'm getting after is, you could assume the people in the far right lane are generally more local, as opposed to someone in the far left lane is...
Tell you what, we're not going to...
Okay.
Here's the gig. Got a per lane, and all the movements and the connections, okay? All the movements and the connections. So from that, you can make some assumptions about if there were a grade separated intersection today, which ones would remain on the local lanes to access the existing businesses. That would look like the next slide. This. So if the grade separated intersection existed today, of the total traffic out there, remember, not everybody that crosses Rio Road is going to Rio Road. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. A lot of cars go past here because they're going somewhere else. So if the grade separated intersection existed today, you could expect about 1,120 cars to be in the through lane and drive under the underpass. In this quadrant. How does this 370 in the local lane become 951 over here in this quadrant? It's because 370 goes south of Rio, is joined by this 402 that turn left, the 110 that turn right, and the 69 that do a U-turn. That are going somewhere over here that they want to get to. Maybe I'm not going to remember all of the Jiffy Lube or the Hardee's or the GameStop, or I'm not going to remember all of the ones in that quadrant. But that's where those numbers come from, based on the counts.
I think I'm with you, except for the U-turn movement.
Except for the U-turn movement.
And because it's so substantial on the southbound side, I would just question the methodology that number came up. Previously, in the existing condition currently, there's a left turn opportunity into the businesses that you would be otherwise U-turning for. So that traffic would not currently come up to the Rio interchange at all today. they would turn left into Albemarle Square.
Right.
You're making VDOT is making an assumption here that 153 new people that were existing coming through would be U-turning, and I just don't know where that traffic is coming from. I agree there's going to be incremental U-turns. Hopefully, I mean, all the businesses need them.
Right, right.
But I think it's incremental to your number and not part of the existing number. All of the left turns that were happening at Albemarle Square are going to have to travel up and through this interchange, which will be incremental.
Which would be incremental, okay?
Does that make sense? I mean, today,
Yes.
somebody traveling south on 29,
Right.
any business in Albemarle Square is going
Right.
to turn at the existing light,
Right.
short of,
Yes.
which would never make your count,
Your original count.
your original count. The 1,633 going through or left turn, whatever. Those people today never make that counting strip that's up in front of Arroyo interchange. And so I don't think those people could be counted as potential U-turn. I mean, they would be new to the numbers that you have today. Does that make sense? I mean, maybe I'm not communicating.
Are you saying the sum of those numbers should be greater than the sum of the original?
Essentially, yeah.
The sum of these numbers will be greater than the original.
Really? Okay.
Chuck?
Basically, you've got, at Albemarle Square, you've got left turns into Albemarle Square from the south. You've also got the left turns out of Albemarle Square that are heading south. So those are basically have to get relocated somewhere else also.
Okay.
So you're taking those away from the through.
Right.
And then you're adding the U-turn movement from the people that want to go to Albemarle Square, would be the 153. But you've got to subtract the left turns coming out of Albemarle Square that aren't going through the intersection. Those have to go somewhere else.
But they won't go out of Albemarle Square that way anymore.
Well, they could go up and make a U-turn at Woodbrook, or they can go out the other entrance to Albemarle Square on Rio Road.
I think the U-turn at Woodbrook is probably not likely.
Relocated them to Rio Road.
Yeah, I would assume that.
And then they come to the intersection, and if you look at the left turns, it's 402. If you look at the left turns originally, it's probably low by 53, I think.
Okay. I mean, I'm not trying to hammer the numbers. I just think that I think that U-turn movement is going to be significant. I hope it's going to be significant after the fact. I don't think there's much there currently that comes up there that does that.
And that's how we did this, and we also looked at, because we got counts from all the entrances
Right.
on both sides of the intersection, and the difference in the numbers for the relocated turning movements in and out of those intersections that would have to go to the intersection and make a U-turn or go.
But we also have counts from the other intersections.
Yes.
Well, if you're saying that folks coming out of Albemarle Square that want to go south, they come up to Woodbrook and make a U-turn there and come back down around southbound lane, are you going to?
They have two choices. They can go make a right and then go up to Woodbrook and make a U-turn, or they can.
Okay,
go
that's
out-
what I'm asking. At Woodbrook, could you extend that traffic light? Because it takes a long time for folks to make a U-turn, as they're doing right now, going 29 north at Riley, make a U-turn and come back into Hardee's, whatever. You'd get 2 or 3 cars through there, and that light changes, and whereas the right lane, 7 or 8 cars would zip through to make a left turn into Riley Road West. So you don't have to extend that light at Woodbrook to accommodate those new folks making U-turns?
As part of our analysis, we're looking at how those impacts are going to affect the traffic timings on the corridor, and then we'll have to adjust it accordingly.
At both of the next signals.
At all of the intersections.
At all the
The
intersections.
second option that they have is to go out to Rio.
The other
take a left
option
back.
is to come out to Rio and make a right turn.
Yeah.
And then make the left at the intersection with 29.
And so in your model, you are assuming a certain amount of people who are now making a left out of Albemarle Square, going south, are now going to go up to Rio Road and make a left, and that's why it's jumping from 265 to 402.
Yes. Does that answer everybody's questions?
Yeah, I'm not trying to
Yeah.
count the numbers. I just think that U-turn is going to be.
When we did this is just one part of the bigger sheet, which has all the intersections and all the turning movements and how we diverted the traffic.
Yes.
Do you have calculations for after construction for this, for
Yes.
Woodbrook?
For-
Woodbrook?
We have the turning movements at Woodbrook.
Yeah.
We don't have, we have them.
Could that be made available? I think I think the 2 intersections
Okay.
on the north and south are
Sure.
going to be substantially.
Okay.
impacted.
Okay. Okay, we've got all that information.
Yeah, it'd be great to
But
share
all
that.
through the model, yes, yes. But I'm trying to be cognizant of the time, not to cut this discussion short. I'm just trying to be cognizant of the time for the folks who want to make the business. So this is, and I thought it was important to look at this as if the grade separated intersection existed today, because it's the only way to give context to the next two sheets. And
Just a real quick question, it's
No,
not
go
about
ahead.
which lane they're in or which
Yeah.
way they're turning or anything. But just overall, and I'm like just trying to add my numbers up, so I may be right. Like I said, if this was in existence today, I'm coming up with about 75% of the current local traffic will now be in the express lanes, or am I off on that? What's the percentage that's now going in those express lanes versus what's currently in the, if it existed today?
yeah,
Do we have a kind of?
if
ballpark
it
number
existed
on that?
if I didn't, we could calculate it real quick, perhaps. Today, about, if I recall my percentage correct, about 80% of the traffic goes through this intersection. In other words, today, there is no local traffic per se, because it's all on 29. It's all on 29 South. So one way to look at it, is that today, let's go back to the other sheet for just a minute.
It's 80%.
Is it 80%? Today, all of these movements would be taking place right on the lanes that are out there today. They're all at grade. Some people are going to drive through, some people are going to hang a right, some people are going to hang a left. If the grade separated intersection were out there today, these people are, okay, the 1126, the 153, the 514, 370, and the 160 are all in the local lane. Whatever we want to call this, right? They're all in the local lane because they're either going south of Rio, or they're turning right, turning left, or making a U-turn, whatever the numbers are. The top number, the second number, the fourth number, and the fifth number are all up in the local lane. So if you added those together, that would give you an idea, using these numbers, of how many people were up on the local lane. Of that total, 370 of them are not going to turn right, left, or make a U-turn. They're going to go through the intersection and be joined on the local lane by these folks, those folks, and these folks. And if you added 370 plus 402 plus 110 plus 69, you better get 951. At least I did the 20 times I added it. That's what you would get. And that would be the same logic you could apply to this quadrant as well, in terms of trying to think, how does 357 become 1335?
I understand, and I apologize, I made comments.
No, go on.
No, to bring, because what I wanted to bring is kind of a visual of that. Currently, that 80%, as they're driving through, they have this view of the surrounding area. I was driving through Fairfax, actually, this Monday, and came through an intersection that looked very similar to what we may be looking at here. So now that 80% instead will be looking at something like this as they drive through, right?
There is absolutely no argument that if this number, it turns out to be 1,126, whatever it is,
But about 80% is going to.
they're going to be in the underpass, looking at the beautiful walls, beautiful architectural treatment.
And I'll make sure I print out our email.
But But this is not a visibility diagram. I mean,
Right, but
they,
it is saying 80% will be going into these lanes that which are lower where the walls are and lose the visibility as they're going through, whereas now, everybody, regardless of left, right, straight through turn, is coming through an area that.
they will be the same people that drive by the businesses now and don't stop there.
Well, I don't know that
But
that
they-
can be
but they-
100%, because
Yes,
you know what,
I-
I'm jockeying between those lanes myself.
Karen,
right now, trying to
Karen,
get to the
they,
left
they,
side of
the
highway.
visibility issue, they won't be visible. We're gonna move past this
Sorry,
pretty
yeah,
fast
but-
unless you have a
no,
quick point. No, I mean, Henry, but no disagreement at all on the visibility issue.
I have a quick question.
Uh-huh.
Because I think I heard two different things
Okay?
as the basis for this number. One was that actual traffic counts were taken at driveways of existing businesses. That's one thing I heard. The other thing is, this is based on estimates of how those properties could fully develop in the future and how much traffic they could generate in the future, not necessarily what's going to happen in a couple of years when this is open to the traffic. Now, which one is it?
The future projections are based on land use, like I reviewed at the beginning.
Okay, the
On-
following diagrams,
On land use.
not this diagram. The 2014 diagram is not based on land use. It's based on actual counts at driveways.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Without trying to argue some of your numbers, since I did my homework.
Right. We did too.
And using your numbers,
Mhm.
and I will share this with you if
Yeah.
you'd like to.
Yeah, I think you did.
Yeah, well, maybe with the rest of the panel.
Yeah,
give me
okay.
permission.
Okay.
And for a minute, just take your numbers at the two quadrants where the math is easier.
Yes, yes.
The one on that side, the one on that side.
Yes.
We still have a reduction. If I own a business on one of those quadrants, if I am where the Hess gas station is in that quadrant, I will still have a 50% reduction in my volume. And if I am on the Almar Squares quadrant, I will have a 54% reduction in my traffic count in front of my business. That's just the math.
If that's your math, then I'm not taking any.
Using your number.
I think that was the point Karen was
I'm-
making.
I'm
So
not-
they're going to go into a tunnel, and they're not going to be able to see any of those businesses on those four quadrants.
Go back, that's correct. That's correct.
And
They
that's
won't be
gonna-
able to see it.
And that is going to hurt.
They won't be
all
able to
of
see
those
it.
businesses.
I'm just gonna say this one more time, then we're going on. These 1,633 people that are traveling through this intersection, they're traveling through here. If you distributed those over the local lanes of the grade separated intersection, if it existed today, based on what these people are doing today, next one, this is what it would look like. Now, might some of those stop pull over into a Hardee's or the Wendy's or the Hess? Sure. Will these people be able to? No. I mean, that's correct. If one of these cars gets in here, they're not coming out to here, and those businesses in the intervening period, intervening distance, won't be visible to them, and I agree. Now,
Just if I'm a commuter
Yes.
going south,
Mhm.
trying to get from point A to point B, I have no intention to stop any of those businesses along the corridor. What will my
see,
behavior-
if you have no intention of stopping, then you can do one of two things. You can be one of these guys
Right.
or one of these ladies.
What would my delay be if I go in the express lane? So it'd be straight through.
There's no signal for these, so it's straight through. Look, I'm not trying, I'm working hard not to assign any judgment to these numbers, whether it's good or bad. These are what the numbers are. If these numbers seem more suitable to you, then talk about these numbers. The only thing I am being honest with you about is that we've engaged people who do this for a living, and they've been doing it largely the same way since 1954, when the first traffic model was developed, and they've grown that expertise that's largely related to land use. The counts have been taken, the model has been calibrated, which is an important part of modeling, and these are the numbers that come out of it. I thought it was important to look at these numbers from the counts and the model as to how it looked today and how it may look if the grade-separated intersection were there now, and what we're going to look at now, based on the model, how those numbers progress from 2018, which is kind of standard. This is the year following construction, and 2040, which is what we refer to as the design year, the operational, not life of the intersection. It's just the design year, the look out into the future, which is what the designers use today for their design, because you design something that you want to last and operate on into the future. You have the numbers. The numbers are available in the presentation online. I'm happy to not generate them, just portray them for the average daily traffic and for the AM peak and for,
Woodbrook.
tell me, Woodbrook, the two.
Remaining intersections north and
Yes.
south. I think there's a certain breakup effect with the traffic currently.
Yeah.
With the 3 stoplights being removed, I'd be curious to see what the stacking
Right.
effect's going to be
Right.
with those lights.
Okay. And I'm going to say we can have that, Chuck, by next meeting. Yeah.
I think he said maybe they already looked at it.
Well, they have already looked at it. This sheet goes all the way to that intersection. Okay, so that is there. That information is there. So, that's a good point. That doesn't mean we're going to go create numbers between now and that. We'll create graphics of the data and projections we already have. So we won't be doing any more number tinkering.
Well,
Henry and I will.
You offered to do it on the average volume.
No, that Henry, I said but it won't be tinkering with numbers. We'll use the information we have and create the graphics like this for the average daily traffic, for the AMP, and then for those two intersections, north and south.
That's your prerogative, not to tinker with the numbers. But personally, I would be very interested to compare my crude methodology with the more refined methodology and see if I can be convinced that their methodology was more accurate.
Well, with all due respect, I'm not going to try to convince you.
Well,
I'll just show you what the results are.
I generally am very acceptable of logic, provided logic is disclosed. If it comes in a black box, then obviously I have a hard time accepting it. And obviously, my logic is not in a black box because I've disclosed it on the back of this. Those numbers are subject to correction. And when it's all said and done, just accepting your numbers and just looking at 2 quadrants very quickly, where I see a 72% reduction with your numbers, it's a 50% reduction. And where I saw a 67% reduction with your numbers, or Vito's numbers, not to make it personal.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
It's still a 54% reduction. And the other two quadrants, they have more things that I have to add up.
Right,
I can't
right,
do that
right.
quickly, But I will do it.
Okay.
What we still face is a substantial impact. And what people need to understand that a business, when it loses, let's say, 30% of its volume, it doesn't lose 30% of its bottom line. It has a break-even point.
Yeah, okay.
And it may lose the bottom line or actually be in the red.
Okay.
And you know what happened with business when they're in the red.
I
They
unfortunately,
do
I
not
do.
survive.
Yeah, I sure do. I sure do.
Okay.
Here's what's for sure. In 2040, if there are 1,449 people in the through lane, they won't be stopping at any businesses from the time they enter to the time they exit. And I agree with that. The numbers, the percentages, you have these calculations, you have your calculations, and
I'd love to get mine similar to the one that VDOT used, provided that they're average for a day and not just peak, because business don't survive on peak.
I'm going to show you the average annual daily traffic based on this model, the AM peak, and the two intersections, and I'll be
And
just
then,
happy to do
if there
that.
are counts that we're taking at driveways, I would be very interested in seeing them and studying them,
Yeah.
just for my own edification.
Is there plans to count traffic during construction and then after?
Yes, 44, we're going to have counts, interim counts, at all of the neighborhoods that we took, and we'll have, now, I don't know about counts during construction, not during construction. Was that one?
Yeah, it was.
Post,
curious
but
to
not
see.
during, they're just going to get, I don't know that we would do it
We
during.
make, some of the neighborhoods, we make.
The neighborhoods,
Just to see if there's a change.
that's why we did those baselines in the neighborhoods.
But after, you definitely plan on doing it after construction.
And it won't be any of these numbers. That I would make a
And that's
bet
not
on.
where I'm going.
Sure.
I mean, there's definitely.
Sure.
An interesting,
There's definitely an interest in seeing how this is performing and how traffic is moving between the local lanes and but this is not an insignificant amount of traffic still on the local lanes. Remember, we're not building a high-speed, I saw something recently on a flyer that, I'm not sure who might have put that together, but it talked about high-speed expressways. This is not a high-speed expressway. This is not the first leg of a Route 29 expressway. I don't know if that was a project somebody was working on or what, but we will want to see, okay, how's this working, particularly with respect to not just, the express lanes are going to be kind of easy to figure out, right? I mean, they're going through, they don't stop, but particularly in terms of looking at local lanes. All right. Stephen, whip past there as fast as you can. No. Hang on a minute.
That's the next one.
Oh, that is the next one. I'm sorry. Dave, I know you have to be careful with what you tell us in the proprietary meetings, but you've met with all three of the design builders. Whatever you can share that's not proprietary, I believe this group would be interested.
Yeah, I've got a few bullet points. We did hold the proprietary meetings. We extended to 2 days at the request of the offers to allow them an additional hour to discuss some of their issues. All of the offers left the meeting and told us that they felt it was a very positive meeting, helped answer some questions. It may not have answered all of their questions at this point, but we are certainly moving in the right direction. I'll share with you a few things that we shared with all of the offers, so it's not proprietary to a single offer. Some of this I've already discussed tonight, but the first bullet item that I discussed was parking. And we explained, again, to all these offers that we are expecting a very strong partnering relationship, that the only way that we can be successful is if VDOT and the design builder work together to resolve problems, don't argue about things or hold back information, have an open and honest communication. It's something that we're stressing throughout the RFP, throughout all these meetings that we're going to have with all these offers. It's what we expect. It's the minimum that we expect. I discussed the preliminary utility design and easement acquisition that I talked about earlier, so I won't go into more detail on that. Discussed what VDOT is doing to help accelerate this process on our end during the design and construction phase. The offers, we're asking a lot of them, and in turn, they're asking a lot of us. So they've asked us to shorten our standard duration of review times, and we've committed to them that we will be doing that. We've also offered to put a requirement in the RFP for co-location of resources, which is a situation where we would request that the design builder partner with us and locate our key personnel in a common location close to the project site so that we can perform over-the-shoulder reviews, that if they have a question, we can answer it right on the spot. They don't have to submit something, go through that process. So we've demonstrated our commitment to this process, and we're asking that the offerors demonstrate theirs. There were proprietary and non-proprietary questions that were submitted in advance of the meeting. We will be able to share with the panel the non-proprietary questions and responses. That's all open to the public and everyone, but the proprietary questions we do need to keep proprietary.
Dave, thanks. Thanks a lot. I know that was an intense couple of days for you, and not that I thought I would be the one to go back to traffic, but Karen, in addition to the other things we did, I'm also gonna do that math and add it on the first page that you asked about, because quite frankly, I'm not sure why I didn't do that. And that would make that easier to understand. Okay, Stephen? Let's go take a peek at the next one. The proposed calendar for next year. This is really, I'm really interested in your input here, but as I look at the activities that are coming up and the importance of your input, my first thought was, well, gee, we might have a little breather. But I'm not seeing it. I believe that if we want to continue to have input at key places and to be able to respond when you need it, because I think we're going to get closer to a time when you're going to give us an opportunity for input, but we're going to have to fit in your pocket. I believe we need to continue every other week. As I looked at the calendar, I thought, well, maybe every other week through Q1, but I think it needs to extend through Q2. We don't have to decide that today, but if you think that that's likely, if you think that makes sense, then I can spread those dates on a calendar and send it to you to see what you think. I could see a point where I don't believe this would be Q1 or Q2, but I could see a point where we might even need to meet more frequently when I looked at that schedule of design reviews starting about mid-year next year, and that could be pretty intense. I don't know what are any initial thoughts about meeting frequency?
My only concern is that's the early part of the year is budget time of year. We have a lot of meetings, so I may miss one or two.
Yeah, okay. Well, no, that's understood. That's certainly understood. But
I think today, the fact that they incorporated the multi-use path that was brought up, that's, I think, pretty significant of the benefit of having these meetings. Because that'll get used a lot more than 2 sidewalks.
Yeah. I agree, John. I agree. Well, why don't I send out, I mean, I know you could do every other week from January 8th, but I'll do that and send that list to you. And then along about the next meeting or the one following, we ought to nail that down, because I also think it's important to let the public know what our schedule is. Not I think, it is important for us to let the public know what our schedule is going to be into 2015. I think the architectural treatments and adding that into the RFP has been another substantial input from this group that wouldn't have happened that way. I mean, not that there wouldn't have been architectural considerations, but not with the specificity that there are going to be. Okay. Steve? Let's go ahead, and the new business is that I'll add the startup business at the next agenda, like you suggested, Brad. Chuck, any wrap-up from you, sir? Anything you'd like to see next meeting?
No, thank you.
Okay. Mayor?
I just wanted to add that I've been working with VDOT for at least 40 years. And this is the most responsive process I've seen. So I appreciate it.
Very good. Congrats. Eddie? Morgan? Okay. Pete? Henry?
Well, I have to agree with the mayor that VDOT really is doing great work, even if we don't always necessarily agree. But I guess when we disagree is because we don't have the same set of facts. And I believe that if we had the same set of facts, we wouldn't.
Well, we'll bring more to the table next time.
That's all it is.
Thank you. Karen?
Well, and this is just, I think we've brought this up in the past, but I took another picture just yesterday, the day before. This is the right turn lane at Rio Road, about 4:45. And I know that's something we've talked about throughout, that there's nothing being done to that, and what's going to happen during construction, after construction, it's already backed up at that.
I missed the first part of what you said. There's
It's
nothing.
the right turn lane.
Yes.
Yeah, that was one of the points. I know that's kind of been talked about, and so just this week when I was out there, I was like, wow, this really is backed up, and what is this going to look like during construction and after construction? Because I don't think this is a part of the design or the plan. It's the westbound heading towards 29 at Ryan.
The right turn at the SunTrust Bank.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the expectations are still in kind of limbo about what we should be communicating to the public. Is that after construction, are we going to see a continuous right turn lane unless there's a pedestrian signal? And then also during construction, are we going to see a signalized right turn, or are we going to see a continuous right turn? So I think some clarity on that right turn lane would be helpful, because I think that's going to be key to try to keep traffic moving.
Right along those lines, some folks have asked me, I do have something to add.
Yeah.
Folks making that right-hand turn, and they go a quarter mile north and want to make a left turn into Woodbrook. There's going to be a certain amount of merging, weaving there, and those express lanes will be going a little bit faster than the local lanes, and they're going to have to make that left lane into Woodbrook to go into, say, Lowe's. There's going to be some jockeying to take place.
Right.
It has to be considered as far as a safety.
That's true. That has to be considered in the weaving analysis, and part of the another input you all have had is the extension of those left turn lanes, north and south.
Will we see that kind of information?
Will we see that kind of information?
You said that there will be an analysis of that kind of merging.
Yeah.
Will we see it?
Yeah, we have that. We
It's in the modeling that
we have.
if you're looking at
Yeah.
aerial flyovers.
Yeah,
That's
we-
based on the BISM analysis, which
Yes.
includes that weave analysis.
Yeah, we do have that. We do have that, and we can
Because
see.
it has come up.
Yeah, well, and that was one of the comments.
Good point, Brad.
That was one of the comments from the beginning. Let's don't skip over Jim for, okay.
We are moving forward on Hillsdale.
Yeah.
and council Monday night approved the engineering contract for our end of adapted signals, so.
Oh, okay.
We're starting design on that, so.
Okay, good, good. All right.
The other thing I have is, starting this panel, I had two expectations for panel members. One was the input and, criticizing bad ideas and really approving good ideas, which I think we have just, kind of difficult conversations, but I think they move along. The other was trying to take the information we get and disseminate it back to whoever our relative audiences are. And with some recent flyers and mailers that went out, there was a lot of misinformation that's out there. And I don't know where that breakdown of communication to the businesses and stakeholders is occurring, but is it reasonable to think that panel members should be, is it appropriate or an expectation that we should be helping communicate the right information so that we're not seeing this misinformation being put out?
I think that's part of why we exist, right? We're supposed to be community representatives and liaisons to the public.
No, I'm asking because I don't want to put that expectation on the panel members, but that's what I assume is my expectation, is to take that information and try to comprehensively and a complete set of information that I'm talking to individuals.
Well, along those same lines, which is what you brought up earlier about us discussing items before as the meeting begins, I'm getting a lot of criticism from people about the Rio 29 road. I'm not disseminating information to them and saying it's bad. I'm hearing it from them. They're not in agreement with it. So it's a two-way street.
Well, maybe
No pun
I
intended.
live a very sheltered life, because I don't know what misinformation specifically you're talking about, because I don't know what it is. But I've been here 30 years hearing all kinds of misinformation from all sides. So nothing is new. But regardless, I don't know which specific one you're talking about.
But if we continue down this path of misinformation, it's going to get distracting from the public actually participating effectively. And, so I'm just throwing it out there that as panel members, as a panel member, I feel like it's my obligation to try to make sure I'm helping get the right information out to stakeholders, whether it's businesses or residents. And I didn't know if that was an expectation, because I missed that first meeting, so I don't really know if that was ever really talked about or
Well, I think the primary expectation of the panel is to bring the ideas to the table. The primary expectation of the panel is to assist in the delivery of the projects. The first meeting, we talked about that our panel's not discussing the what are we going to do, but the how we're going to do it. I think we have to be respectful of different opinions about the what. As far as dissemination of information, I would hope that's the dissemination of facts. How people judge the facts or view the facts might be differently. I saw something about this is the first project of building an expressway on Route 29. It is not. I saw something that said something about a high-speed facility. It's not. But I presume that knowing it's not a high-speed facility or not the first of a step to build an expressway probably wouldn't change the mind of whoever said that. So I don't know. I think it's important to speak from the facts.
Some of us said that.
Yeah.
Including myself, as far back as 30 years ago.
Yeah, I don't.
And I also have
know.
come to the conclusion that if it was an expressway, well designed and built quickly, it may not be a bad thing.
You should have been on the first panel. No, I understand. Yeah.
The VDOT project is calling it express lane, so that's not something that somebody else, so fast express lane, so how far they go, that's.
They go for about 2,000 feet, and that's it.
They're express lanes.
Your handout yesterday addressed what I've seen in terms of, we want to call it misinformation, incomplete information, but there's been a lot of exaggeration. You hear that the Rio Road 29 intersection will be closed, or that Rio Road is going to be closed. I think the information that you put out yesterday, I think it was yesterday.
Yeah, there has been a lot of what is going to happen between May 23rd and September 2nd and before May 23rd and after September 2nd in terms of maintenance of traffic. And I did feel that that was important too. Well, it is important. Dave and I have been talking about it every day. Let's write it down again to make sure we all understand it the same way.
If we could get that in some sort of handout form that has, the VDOT insignia on it.
We did.
And then get that out there to counter the misinformation or incomplete information that's being put out there. I think that's one very proactive role. We can help play it and counter that.
Well, and I'm taking up a lot of time here. I'll be the first to admit that I haven't seen everything, but some things I see get under my skin a little bit because they're just wrong. Not because the person might not agree with the package of projects. And we are not salespeople for the projects. Our job is to work with primarily this guy right here in terms of delivery. All of them. Rio, Berkmar, Hillsdale, even though the city's managing that, Route 29 North, the Best Buy ramp, and the adaptive signal projects. Not so much the hydraulic road preliminary engineering study, because that's not even programmed to start until all of this is finished. And that's the pocket I'd like to see us stay in. I think it's great that we have hard discussions. Otherwise, it would just be, another group of people getting together to, I don't know what for. It would be a waste of our time. So the facts that we're having difficult discussions over some issues are good because those discussions are going to make things better. The multi-use paths, as you said, how do you do it? Well, do we want to do it? Don't we want to do it? Well, look, let's not talk about it. Let's do it. Okay, but we can only get it to North Hollymead, and then we got to cross over. Those are great outcomes.
I'll tell you, on that comment, I always tell people my best relationships have been forged in fire, so I expect to maintain a relationship with a lot of people in this room.
And I know there are a lot of people that would rather the project that's not getting built be built, but that's not going to get built. So we have a chance to influence what will be done, and I think that's a good thing. John, we kind of left you out of any wraps up.
That's all right. I would add to the list of accomplishments that VDOT listened and moved up the schedule for the Best Buy ramp.
Yes.
I think that was huge.
Yeah.
And the other thing, not to be a broken record, but like Chuck, I've not had one positive comment about the interchange. The biggest comment that I hear is, why can't we phase it?
Why can't we?
Phase it. Go ahead and do Berkmar and Hillsdale, Best Buy ramp.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that it's unrealistic to say, let's do these things, signalize the lights, and then figure out if we have to spend $84 million to remove 3 stoplights.
Well, everybody can kind of pin that on me. I've told VDOT that I believe we would make the situation at Rio and 29 worse if we were to do it in that order, because that additional capacity will generate additional traffic, and any traffic using those parallel roads or John Warner that crosses through Rio will make the construction of the Rio grade separated intersection more difficult. And this is a package of projects that they're all going to be delivered. And because it's a package of projects and they're all going to be delivered, my experience and judgment says that the right thing to do is to do the Rio grade separated intersection first, quickly and expertly, and get out of the way. Now, there are a lot of people that just don't agree with that. And I appreciate I appreciate that, but I appreciate the feelings, but I think the way we're moving forward is the right way to do it, provided we can deliver it the way we've said, that it can be delivered, and have a contractor working with us that can deliver it the way we've said it can be delivered, and at the same time, in the same package, working closely with Jim, deliver Berkmar and Hillsdale. That's the path we're on. Look, it's 4 o'clock. I know this county meeting starts at 4:30. The information you talked about, Morgan, is on some handouts that I think the county asked for to have available tonight, that just talks about maintenance of traffic before and after that restricted period. And one thing I would ask of the panel is that we put so much effort into Rio and the grade separated intersection. I don't want to turn that down any, but let's remember to keep the heat up on the other ones as well, because they're all important and they all need our input. Thank you very much, and I'm sure I'll see several of you at 4:30. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.